Okay, continuing on with Foundations 2, Section 2.3, Complementary and Supplementary Angles. This is Part 2 of Day 1. So in my directions, they tell me angle 1 and angle 2 are complementary angles. So let's just think back. Complementary mean that they have to add up to 90 degrees. So it says, given the measure of angle 1, find the measure of angle 2. Now, on a lot of these, you're going to be able to look at them and do them in your head, but I really want you to practice writing out all the steps because that's what I'm going to expect of you. So they tell me here the measure of angle 1 is 19 degrees. Now, if I got a protractor out and tried to measure angle 1, it may or may not be 19 degrees, but the point is if they tell me that angle 1 is 19 degrees, then I'm going to say it is 19 degrees. So even if it doesn't look exactly like that, I know that if they're telling me in the directions, that's what it is. Now, notice on this one right here, at the vertex that they share, I see this box. And you guys should remember we've talked about this. The box means right angle, and right angles are 90 degrees, which are complementary angles. So we're going to set this up. We know that when I add the measure of angle 1 and the measure of angle 2, they have to be complementary. So the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 has to equal 90 degrees. So this is just angle addition. Again, angle addition postulate saying I can add those two angles to get the big angle. Substitute in what we know. We know the measure of angle 1 is 19, so I can replace that right there. That would be the substitution rule. And then I just want to get the measure of angle 2 by itself, so this has to go. How do we get rid of the 19? We're going to have to subtract 19 from both sides. And hopefully you either know how to do this in your head or you got a calculator out in front of you. If not, grab a calculator real quick and figure out what the measure of angle 2 will be. And 90 minus 19 gives me 71. So the measure of angle 2 is 71. And you can always check that. Take 71 plus 19 to see if it adds up to 90. So you can always double check that. Okay, on to the next example. Okay, in this example, again, I see this right angle mark down here, so I know they're 90 degrees. So they told me in the directions, again, they were complementary, but I know it for sure also because the box is there. Now they're telling me the measure of angle 1 is 52 degrees, so I know 52 degrees right there. I want to find the measure of angle 2. So we're going to set it up just like we did our first problem over here. So we're going to use the angle addition postulate to get those two to be complementary. So we know the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 is going to equal 90 degrees. That's what it means to be complementary. In our next step then, we're going to substitute in everything that we know. Well, what do we know? They tell me right here that the measure of angle 1 is 52 degrees. So I'm going to replace the measure of angle 1 right here with 52 degrees. So I've replaced the measure of angle 1 with 52. And now we need to get the measure of angle 2 by itself. So how do I get rid of the 52? We are going to subtract 52 from both sides. So when I subtract 52 right here, these cancel out. And then all we got to do is figure out what is 90 minus 52. So either do that in your head or grab your calculator. And of course, 90 minus 52 gives me 38. So the measure of angle 2 is 38. And you can always check these by taking 38 and 52 and seeing if they add up to 90, which makes them complementary. Okay, our next examples are talking about angles 1 and 2 are supplementary angles. Okay, so what does supplementary mean? It means they add up to 180 degrees. So we are going to be given the measure of angle 1. We want to find the measure of angle 2. So if you look right here, look here what this says. It says the measure of angle 1 is 147 degrees. Look at this though. Angle 1 looks like an acute angle to me. Now this is the great thing about geometry, is that you can't go by what it looks like. You have to be going off of what you've been told. So even though to my eye it looks like angle 1's acute, I have to assume it is not, because they told me that it's 147 degrees. Now we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to add these two up, and this time they're going to equal 180. Okay, using angle addition, we have the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 adds up to 180. So I'm just taking the two angles, adding them together to get the big angle, and again, this 180 because that's a straight line right there. Okay, we know the measure of angle 1. They told me that in my directions, so next step, substitute that in. So I put 147 in for the measure of angle 1, and I want to solve for the measure of angle 2, so the 147 has to go. How do I move it to the other side? Subtract 147 from both sides. It's going to cancel out over here on the left, leaving me with the measure of angle 2. Grab your calculator or use your brain. Take 180 minus 147. Let's find out how much angle 2 should be. So when you took 180 minus 147, you should have gotten 33 degrees. And you can take 33 plus 147, add those guys together, you should get 180. Okay, I want you to try this problem on your own, so I want you to pause the video. Go ahead and set it up and then solve for angle 2. Okay, so we should have substituted in 38 for the measure of angle 1 right here. So 38 plus measure of angle 2 is 180. We got the 38's got to go because we want to solve for measure of angle 2, so I'm subtracting 38 from both sides. Hopefully you did your calculations correctly. 180 minus 38 is 142. And you can always check your work. 142 plus 38 is 180.